Welcome to the Fort Worth Housing Solutions Managing Project-Based Voucher Units Training for Property Managers. I am Kimberly Davis, the Project-Based Voucher Coordinator. Please take note of my contact information as I will be your point of contact for the Project-Based Voucher Program. Topics for today's training are inspections for new constructions and existing properties, managing the waitlist, eligibility and intake for new applicants, rent changes, relocations, terminations, tenants' right to move to the HCV program, housing assistance payments. Please take note of the slide numbers in order to follow along. Inspections for new constructions. All PBV units must be inspected prior to occupancy by a tenant. In order to begin this process, please complete and email the PBV unit checklist form to the PBV team email address listed. Fort Worth Housing Solutions inspections teams will ask for the certificate of occupancy for buildings with PBV units. That document is provided by the City of Fort Worth. Our inspections contractor will contact you to schedule an inspection. This slide displays the PBV unit checklist form. This is the document that must be completed to initiate an inspection. Please make sure all the units that need to be inspected are listed on this form. For questions on completing this form, please send an email to the PBV team email address at pbvteam@fwhs.org. Once the unit inspection passes, you will receive a PBV unit checklist showing the pass dates for all the units passed. Inspections are valid for 120 days. Units must be re-inspected after 120 days if still not occupied by a tenant. To request a new inspection, you will need to resend the PBV unit checklist to pbvteam@fwhs.org, listing all the units that must be re-inspected. If the property is affiliated with Fort Worth Housing Solutions, a third-party inspector will contact you to schedule the inspection. If the property is not affiliated with FWHS, our inspections team will contact you to schedule that inspection. Re-inspections are valid for 60 days. A unit is only approved to be occupied by a tenant when the PBV HAP contract has been executed, all inspections have been passed and are still valid, the property manager has received a move-in approval from the inspections team at the Fort Worth Housing Solutions office. Inspections for existing properties. These inspections are completed when one tenant moves out of a unit and another tenant is moving into a unit. PBV units must be inspected for every new occupancy. Properties must notify the PBV team by email when a PBV unit is vacant and ready for inspection. The email must include the PBV unit checklist form indicating the vacant units. The inspection is scheduled, then the properties are notified when the units pass inspections. Inspections are good for 60 days on existing properties only. Managing the waitlist for PBV units. If applications are accepted at the properties will maintain the waitlist and include the following information: the name and contact information for the head of household, the date and time of the application completion, the date the applicant is selected from the wait list, if the applicant is denied, the reason for the denial. If applications are taken online, Fort Worth Housing Solutions will maintain the wait list and provide a copy of the wait list to the property. Fort Worth Housing Solution promptly runs an ad to open a depleted wait list when notified about the need for applicants by the properties. Properties must promptly notify Fort Worth Housing Solutions of vacancies or expected vacancies in writing. Eligibility and intake step by step. The property is responsible for screening applicants for suitability to live on the property. The property will screen for criminal history, credit, etc. If rejected, the property must notify Fort Worth Housing Solutions promptly in writing with the grounds for the rejection. If the applicant is approved, the property will send the project-based voucher referral form that is provided by FWHS and the application, if not submitted online, to the PBV team email address at pbvteam@fwhs.org. We will promptly make eligibility appointments and tell the applicants about the documentation needed to complete eligibility. Eligibility and intake continued. Fort Worth Housing Solutions determines eligibility based on the applicant's income, any debts owed to us or another housing authority, and household composition to ensure that the applicant's family household qualifies for the unit size assigned. Applicants are briefed, provided a statement of family responsibility for the project-based voucher program, and the tenant's portion of the rent called their TTP. If the tenant pays utilities, they will receive a utility allowance after going under contract, which will reduce the portion of the rent that the tenant pays. The coordinator will notify the property manager and the applicant of approval or rejection of eligibility. This slide displays the referral form for the project-based voucher program. This referral form must be provided for all approved applicants by the property. This referral form, along with the application, if necessary, will be emailed to the PBV team at fwhs.org. This slide displays a sample PBV application completed by applicants on site. A property that does not take on-site applications can still request a PBV application in order to utilize it for changes made by applicants after they have completed their online application. For example, if there has been a change in household composition, this application can be utilized to display that when the referral for any approved applicants is sent to FWHS. This slide displays an example of the total tenant payment, the TTP form. This form is provided to all eligible applicants. It displays the assigned voucher bedroom size that they have been approved for and their tenant portion of the rent with no utility allowance implemented. Determining unit subsidy size. PBV units follow these PHA subsidy size rules. It's 2 persons per bedroom, with the exception of a single parent or guardian with a child over the age of 10. For example, a parent with a 16-year-old child would get a 2-bedroom unit. 4-person households will get a 2-bedroom unit. Gender and age are not a factor in unit assignment sizes. 1 extra bedroom may be allowed for live-in aides based on funding availability with an approved reasonable accommodation. An aide may be a family member. Tenant rent changes. A change in the tenant's portion of the rent will occur when the tenant initially comes under contract and the utility allowance is implemented, or has a change in income, expenses, or family composition. Annual recertifications and interims are the usual methods in which a change in the tenant's portion of rent is generated. FWHS will send a rent change notice to the landlord and tenant reflecting the new tenant portion rent amount and the effective date. Any monies owed to the property due to the date of the rent change will be paid on the following month along with that current month's half payment. Rent increases. Rent increases are processed at the anniversary date of the HAP contract for all PBV units at the property. Request must be made by email to pbvteam@fwhs.org 60 days prior to the anniversary date. Rent reasonableness surveys will be conducted, and if found reasonable, the new rent amount will be approved and forwarded to the PBV coordinator to be effective at the anniversary date of the HAP contract. Landlords will be notified immediately of denied rental amounts and given the option to negotiate a new rental amount. For any questions on rent reasonableness, please direct it to the inspection supervisor, Ruben Renteria, at the email address provided on the slide. This slide displays an example of the PBV rent increase request form to be completed and provided to FWHS 60 days prior to the HAP contract anniversary date. Relocations. Project-based vouchers are not mobile vouchers, but a family could relocate for the following instances. A reasonable accommodation for an accessible unit requiring a change of unit in order to meet the reasonable accommodation. A PBV unit in the same property must be available per the contract for the resident if they will continue to receive subsidy from the PBV program. The current unit of the family is determined to be the wrong size unit due to overcrowding or being under-occupied. In this case, FWHS must offer the family continued housing assistance in another unit or under another program. If the new unit not designated by PBV, then FWHS must amend the HAP contract before relocation. Terminations. The PBV lease automatically terminates and the tenant must move out of the unit if any of the following occurs. The owner terminates the lease for good cause, such as lease violations or evictions through the courts. The tenant terminates the lease by either moving out of the unit with or without notice, the tenant is deceased, or changes to another program. The property must notify the PBV coordinator immediately after discovery that a tenant is no longer occupying a unit. The tenant and owner agree to terminate the lease with a mutual dissolution. The FWHS ends the housing assistance payments for program violations or over income. FWHS terminates the HAP contract with the property. If over income, a household is removed from the PBV program 180 days or 6 months after the final HAP payment is made on the family's behalf. Households may not remain in a PBV unit if no longer participating in the PBV program unless FWHS determines a comparable unit can be substituted for the family. Tenant right to move. The tenant may at any time after the first year of occupancy on the PBV program request tenant-based rental assistance through the Housing Choice Voucher Program if vouchers are available. The family must give the PBV property manager advance written notice of intent to vacate. An affidavit of damages will be sent to the landlord in order to ensure the tenant is in good standing before being issued a tenant-based voucher. If the tenant is unable to lease up under HCV and has not moved out of their PBV unit, the tenant may remain on the PBV program receiving subsidy. Housing assistance payments. Once a PBV unit is occupied by a tenant, the move-in date will be requested from the contracts team for Fort Worth Housing Solutions. Once that date has been provided to the contracts team, they will send the property manager the HUD tenancy addendum. That addendum must be signed by both the property owner and the tenant, then returned to Fort Worth Housing Solutions within 10 days with a copy of the signed lease by email to the PBV team email address. Attention, contracts. The lease must say HUD tenancy addendum attached. That can either be typed or handwritten on that document. The start date, end date, and rent on the addendum must be identical on the lease, and the date of the lease cannot be before the move-in date of the tenant. The lease end date is always the last day of the previous month. For example, if a tenant moves in April 25th, 2017, the lease will go to March 31st of 2018 with the new lease beginning on April 1st of 2018. Any delay in returning the tenancy addendum and lease may delay the first HAP payment. In order to receive your HAP payment on the first of the following month, please email the tenancy addendum and lease by the 21st day of the prior month. Please take note of the contact information listed below for the contracts team: Ravonda Thompson, Tangela Caldwell and Kashiana Miller, and for inspections, Ruben Renteria, the inspection supervisor. This concludes the project-based voucher training. Thank you for your participation in the PBV program.